Alright, got my peach tea, and I am ready to record more ramblings for y'all. And this time I'm going to ramble about, something that has kind of been, well, it had huge hype, and then mixed reaction, and then this latest episode has sort of catapulted it into, just sort of proving how much potential it really has, and that is Rooster Teeth's RWBY. The highly anime-influenced web series. Calling it anime-influenced is sort of... it's more than that, though. It's like it's trying to be anime, and I don't think that's a bad thing. I mean, it's sprung a lot of debate about whether it really counts as anime or whether we should consider it as anime, and my personal view is that it is essentially anime in spirit, because it has so much of the same stuff. It's got the same tropes, it's got the same kind of humor, the same kind of action, just from the designs to the way things are unfolding. It is anime in spirit, and that's not going to convince everyone, but to me, I think it doesn't really matter exactly what the show is. We should just enjoy it as is and not try to classify and categorize every little thing. Yeah, so now I decided to make this video because we're at mid-season. The season is planned to be 16 episodes. Episode 8 just launched yesterday, signifying that the season is now half over. And apparently I heard somewhere, I can't seem to find any confirmation, but I've heard that they're doing some kind of movie thing after the season. I'm not sure if it's supposed to be its own thing, or if it's going to close out the season, or even if it's even real. But that's just what I've heard. Anyway, what I think so far is that it had a bit of a rocky start. I think mostly because... I think the whole reason for when it began, its mixed reaction to it was because one was the hype and the fan expectation. I mean, they released these trailers over the course of 9 months. That gives people a lot of time to sort of draw their own conclusions and make their own theories and predictions and all that stuff. And to have all of that proven wrong may upset quite a few people. It doesn't do much for me because I didn't really bother thinking about it too much or doing I did a little bit of predicting, but I didn't get all that attached to my predictions because I knew that in all likelihood the show was just going to disregard them in short order once it aired. So I wasn't affected by that, but some people are. And the other reason is because, and this is probably the biggest complaint about the show, is its short episodes. Now, for a web series, having episodes that are 5 to 10 minutes is not all that unusual. But because of the hype and because of its anime influence, people kind of started expecting more out of it, and I think... And people who defend it will often use the argument that Red vs. Blue episodes are similarly lengthed. I would argue that Red vs. Blue can get away with that for a couple of reasons. One, at least it started out as machinima, so people kind of expected that length anyway. It's also a lot more comedy-focused, so, as long as it's funny, you're getting more out of it than your typical RWBY episode, even though RWBY has quite a bit of comedy itself. And also just the fact that Red vs. Blue has been... We're used to it. It's been going on for over a decade now, whereas a new show like RWBY has quite a bit to prove, so people want more so they can sort of prove to their audience that the show is good. Those seem to be the main complaints, and I just finished rewatching it before making this video, and one thing I noticed is that if you watch the episodes, and there's only 8, but if you watch the episodes half and half, in groups of 4, as far as pacing and as far as length, and just the way that they're told, every 4 episodes of this show almost equal one complete episode, in a sense, so at this point that would be 2 episodes total at this point. for the season. So because it really does feel like that to me, like they're taking what is essentially a full-length episode and breaking it into 4 parts and releasing each part week by week individually. And I suppose the question there then becomes, do you want to wait a whole month for a regular lengthed episode, or do you want to have bits and pieces week after week? And I don't know exactly what I want out of that, because the thing is, it can't be longer and faster. We're not going to get full-length episodes every week. That's just not that's just not possible with the kind of production they have here. I mean, the team is comprised of 10 people. I think only about half of them are animators at all, so we're not going to get the production. The amount of time it takes to make this content is not going to change. The only thing that might change is how it's delivered to us, and do you want full-length episodes on a monthly basis, or do you want little snippets, little 5 to 10 minute snippets every week? It kind of depends. I'm not sure what I want, but that seems to be the biggest complaint so far, is the short episodes. The biggest complaint before the series aired, was the voice acting, which I think I and pretty much everyone else seems to unanimously agree that it has greatly improved. It has greatly improved from the trailers, even though I don't think it changed all that much, but I think what improved was just our perception of it, because we're now hearing these voices in context, as opposed to the 3 or 4 lines we heard at the end of the last trailer. So, well, in the third trailer too, I guess, a little bit there. But now we're hearing it all sort of in the context of an actual story, so it feels better, even though I don't think it's really, as far as the delivery goes, I don't think it's really changed all that much. So there's definitely a lot of that. I was a little worried because they're, once again, relying heavily on talent from within. Rooster Teeth's a very secular company like that. They always like to hire from within. They don't like to outsource much of anything. That's the whole reason that Red vs. Blue Animated got canned, was because they just didn't want to have to rely on people outside the company to do things for them. I can't say I'm entirely happy with that policy, and to be fair, there's a lot of company policies that Rooster Teeth has, and a lot of the ways they do business that I just don't like. They have atrocious, in my opinion, they have atrocious prices for their goods. The the Red vs. Blue collector set that has 10 seasons in it, the Blu-ray is priced at $180, which I think is just ridiculous for what it is. They seem to forget sometimes that if it was full-length seasons, full-length TV show seasons, and there's 10 of them, I could maybe see $180, but they seem to forget that their seasons are only maybe an hour and a half to 2 hours long each. So, it's kind of hard to justify your price like that. That's, in my opinion, kind of ridiculous. I also don't like that they only seem to use UPS. Not that UPS is bad. It's definitely, but, sometimes if I'm ordering your stupid RWBY pins, your stupid $6 pins, I don't want to pay $8 in shipping, okay? I just don't. That's one instance where I don't mind the Postal Service's cheaper shipping. So the fact that they don't offer that kind of pisses me off. There's just a lot of ways Rooster Teeth does business that just I don't really like. I think they give way too much. I mean, I know it's kind of the point, but I think they give way too much to their premium members, and sort of a lot of times leave their non-premium members sort of shit out of luck. I mean, I know that's the whole point of a premium membership, but sometimes I feel like they're not just they're not rewarding people who are premium members so much as they're punishing others for not being premium members. How dare you not be a premium member? We're awesome! Anyway, enough about how they do business. Let's talk about the show itself. first thing I want to talk about is the animation, which, well, there's two sides to it, and everyone's kind of noticed this, is that there's the animation during fight scenes, and then there's everything else. The animation during fight scenes is, of course, gorgeous to look at, very well choreographed, and just fun to watch. Everything that made Montiome famous in the first place. And then there's the animation when it isn't fighting, when it isn't a fight scene, and that is, it's not bad, it's just, it's very serviceable, like, it's nothing special, it gets the job done. And the other thing that's a little, not bad, but kind of distracting, is they do all these kind of sight visual gags, like with the cereal boxes and Chibi Ruby, and in the first episode, Roman Torchwick stomping his cigar on the ground with his cane. These kind of gags that you see a lot in anime that would work in a 2D setting, but because it's 3D, it doesn't always translate perfectly into RWBY. Like, they're trying to do a lot of things that 2D animation would do, not sort of disregarding the fact that it's 3D animation. And, I don't mind it, and I do get chuckles out of it, but it doesn't always look as good as it could be. That cigar stomp in the first episodes, in particular, still looks very weird. So that's the animation. I like the designs. I like the style. People have noted it kind of looks like the whole thing kind of looks like a cutscene from a Tales game, which, you know, for a web series, that's pretty good. Right, so let's talk about the plot. The plot is, and again, many people have noted this, I don't have much to add here. It's essentially Montiome's version of Soul Eater, which, anyone who knows me, like, okay, but let's get my thoughts on Soul Eater out of the way. I thought it was passable, good. And we're talking about the anime here. I've never read the manga. I plan to eventually, now that it's done, or maybe I'll wait for, the theory is that Studio Bones is going to do the same thing they did with Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, and make another Soul Eater anime that follows the manga more closely. If they do that, I will definitely give that a watch. If they don't do that, I'll read the manga eventually. So we're talking about the original, or the only, at this point, anime of Soul Eater. I thought it was passable. I thought it was good, but not great. You know, I have a lot of issues with it. I'm not going to get it too far into that here, because this is RWBY Ramblings. This is not Soul Eater Ramblings. Although, you know, if they ever do make that second anime series, or if I ever do finish the manga, I will probably make a rambling video about that at some point. Quick recommendation, if anyone likes Soul Eater, or even if you were slightly disappointed with Soul Eater, I recommend that you check out Blue Exorcist, because, in my opinion, Blue Exorcist is the better Soul Eater. It's kind of what I wished Soul Eater was, or what I thought it should be. The anime is really good, the dub's really good. Word of warning, though, 2 words of warning. One, in episode 2 particularly, and for the whole show, but episode 2 specifically, stay through the end credits. First of all, the ending theme, I can't remember what it's called, but it's really good. It's a really nice ending theme. Stick through after that, because Blue Exorcist is one of those shows that has a bad habit of putting very important scenes after the credits. So everyone goes to and with episode 2 in particular, a very important scene happens after the end credits. And it's a common thing for everyone to go to episode 3 and be completely confused because they didn't stay past the credits of episode 2. So if you're going to watch Blue Exorcist, always stay through the end credits. They're good end credits anyway. It's a good song. You're going to be listening to it anyway. But just a warning there. And the second warning is that the anime does break away from the manga after episode 15, so you should probably do what I did, which is watch the first 15 episodes. It's a good expansion on the manga. And then switch over to the corresponding manga chapter, which I believe is 12 or 13, or you'll find it. Anyway, this is not the Blue Exorcist ramblings. Anyway, so the plot of RWBY is essentially Montiome's take on sort of a Soul Eater concept. where, you know, kids with weird weapons and powers go to a school to learn how to fight monsters known as creatures of Grimm, which is, considering the fairy tale sort of motifs going about, is very clever because, you know, the Brothers Grimm wrote a lot of the fairy tales that influenced a lot of the motifs on this show, so I thought that was kind of clever. And at first, even as far back as the first trailer, I was a little concerned about the fairy tale motifs, mainly because it's been done before in anime and out of anime. Like, it's been done before. Like, I seem to be the only person who remembers Mare, but if anyone else remembers Mare, Mare did kind of the same thing, although I'd argue it did it a lot more directly, whereas RWBY, it's more visual. With RWBY, and even Monty himself has admitted this, it's more visually referencing these fairy tales motifs, rather than Mare, which was very direct about it. Like, it was very direct about it, and Mare is a show that I have huge issues and conflicted feelings about, and a lot of nostalgia for, so that'll definitely get its own rambling video at some point, and that will be ridiculously long. That'll be I swear, when my Mare rambling video comes out, it's going to be like 5 hours long. I'm not even kidding. Anyway, so I was a little concerned about the fairy tale motifs, but it pulls them off pretty well. Again, mostly visually. Like, RWBY herself is very, very inspired visually from Little Red Riding Hood. Her character has almost nothing to do with that, and the same goes for pretty much everyone else who's influenced by something or another, referencing, and it's not just fairy tales, it also references a lot of mythology, particularly Greek mythology I've seen, and from what I know, it does that pretty well. So the story is not exactly original, but it is, and it may not seem like this if you're watching episodes week to week, but when you watch it, all that there is right now, in one big marathon, as if it was 2 complete episodes, you'll see that while the story and to some extent the characters as well, they're not entirely original, they are very well, at least I think they're pretty well executed. And again, it's hard to get a feel for that week by week with these short episodes, but if you watch it all at once in a marathon, it really kind of comes together better than you might think. There's clearly a lot of heart and charm in this, because this is something that Monty's been wanting to do for a very long, long time. So he's really putting us all into this. You know, that's the thing that kind of annoys me when people complain about these short episodes, is the fact that they may or may not understand that Monty and his whole team, and Monty and his whole team are really breaking their backs over it as it is. Like, it's well documented that Monty does not sleep. He just keeps animating constantly, you know. And you have to kind of respect how hard the guy works for his art, you know. This is something that I think he holds very near and dear to his heart, and I gotta respect him for that. And I now have to go do something, so I'm going to stop recording here and save it, and then I'm going to make a part 2, and you won't even notice because I'm going to edit them together. So, see you over in about 2 seconds on part 2. And I am back for part 2. Sorry if there's a little bit more background noise. I had to, once again, change recording locations. For the first half of this, rambling was recorded, downstairs, where there's only one fan, and it's far away from me, and it's very quiet. This half is being recorded in my room, where there's a million fans, and it's very loud. I've turned them down or turned them off, which makes it hotter in here, but, should result in better audio quality once I do some static filtering. Yeah, that's right, I'm sweating for your guys' benefit, so I hope you appreciate that. And anyway, let's continue to ramble on about RWBY. Let's get in a bit to what I think of the cast. Of course, over the
course of the 9 months the trailers came out, we got snippets of what these main girls were capable of, and some background people who pretty much all of which have not really, like, none of the background people from the trailers, like Junior or those twins or Adam or anyone has made an appearance in the show yet. Seeing as they went to the effort to make unique models for them, I'm going to assume they will probably play some role at some point, maybe not in this season, but eventually. That's just what I think, is that, seeing as they do black silhouettes for the crowds, it makes me wonder, they wouldn't give them unique character models if they weren't going to be important at some point. Anyway, one thing that's kind of fascinating and to some people a bit disappointing is the fact that certain character personalities are way different, or they turned out to be way different than what fans assumed they would be. This is especially prevalent because a lot of people read the 4-Coma webcomics by someone on DeviantArt. I cannot for the life of me remember his name right now. I think it was like Lunaris something. I can't remember. Anyway, he had some fairly well-drawn and occasionally pretty funny 4-Comas that painted very different personalities. Blake and Yang were mostly the same for the most part, but the personalities of Ruby and Weiss turned out to be way different than what people had assumed. The assumption was going to be that Ruby was going to be much more stoic and much more, I'm not sure exactly how to phrase it, just sort of stoic and the ace of the group, and she turned out quite different from that. She's more energetic and perky and sort of got that she's got that I don't want to be seen as special sort of thing, even though she clearly is, and everyone pretty much knows it. So her personality is a lot more chipper and self-conscious, I think, than a lot of people assumed. And in Weiss's case, I think people just didn't expect her to be such a bitch early on. I assumed one of them would, because I don't know, I just felt like with the setup you needed some kind of friction in the beginning. I figured one of them was going to be the bitch, and if I'm being honest, I think Weiss, in my mind back then, was going to be the most likely candidate. Because she's very abrasive and haughty, I was going to say lack of better words, but those are great words. I don't know why I'm being so self-conscious about the words I'm choosing. I don't understand. So yeah, she collides with Ruby a lot on sort of differences in ideology regarding fighting, and just because she can, mostly. She's just very abrasive like that. And it's implied that she's quite lonely because her abrasiveness pushes people away, which is a character trait that I've seen before, and I think it's fairly well done here. And I'm expecting some sort of vitrolic friendship to strike up here at some point. I don't think it's made some progress towards that thus far, but I don't think it's quite there yet. And what is even more interesting to me is that even though their personalities are far different than fans assumed from the trailers, they are somehow still this series' OTP, which I found kind of interesting how that maintained itself, even though their personalities are a lot different than what we had assumed. So that's interesting to me. And one thing I want to point out that I found, I don't know if anyone else has noticed this, but doesn't it seem like the 4 main girls in RWBY are like gender-flipped versions of the 4 main characters of Hunter x Hunter? Like, it just kind of seems like that to me, a little bit. Like, assuming some fan theories about Blake secretly being a faunus, or one of those beast people, is correct, that might put her more along, that might put her as sort of a counterpart to Karapika. Everyone seems to match up with, there are differences, sure, but vaguely speaking, the RWBY cast seems kind of like a gender-flipped version of the Hunter x Hunter cast, which is good in my books. Of course, this is also assuming that Killua would be far more bitchy as a girl than he ever was. But I can see sort of the same kind of development perhaps happening, one from a family of assassins and one from a corporation, like a corporate, like almost royal family that has high expectations of them, and they turn away from those expectations. You know what I'm saying? So that kind of defrosting character development might be the same, you know, which would also imply that there's going to be a hell of a lot of ship tease with Weiss and RWBY, which I'm not against the idea. I think a lot of people would enjoy that. I don't know, though, because Monty seems intent on toning down. As much as the series utilizes anime tropes and anime things you see in anime, he seems to be almost subduing them in some regards. For example, his as he claims, his patented anti-upskirt technology. I still get a chuckle out of that every time I hear, think, or read that. That's just a great way of putting it. Things like that, so maybe not quite as much as we would assume. So yeah, I like the main characters. We haven't seen much of Blake in this first half of this season. Although given her quiet, stoic, reclusive nature, I think that makes sense. And, you know, she'll definitely come along. But as of now, we haven't seen much, so I'm not going to say a whole lot. And, as for Yang, I find her, entertaining in the interesting way she tries to get RWBY to branch out a bit socially. And that's also a big thing, is RWBY's, lack of social skills, which I can certainly relate to, and how she sort of, she's better with things and with fighting and with weapons than she is with dealing with people, which I think I can relate to. I think a lot of people who would watch a show like this could relate to, like how you might hide behind your hobbies or your other interests to sort of avoid dealing with others. That's something that's kind of endearing to me, anyway. As for the other team, John is really, it's a typical butt monkey thing, but I find him very hilarious. Although, one thing that pisses me off is that in the comments of videos and such, that nobody seems to be able to spell his fucking name right. Like, I've seen every possible spelling of that name ever. From Jon to John to Jann to Jaen to Jaun without the E. And let's just be clear here, if you watch the credits or anything, you would know it's Jaune. It's not complicated. Learn to spell his fucking name. I don't know why, I just get kind of pissed at that. I even saw it spelled as Jaen once. That doesn't even make sense. That would be pronounced as Jane. Anyway, if there's one character I think he's the closest to as a comparison, he reminds me a lot of Sokka from Last Airbender, although as of yet not quite as competent, but he'll probably get there. There seem to be some hints in that direction, as well as an implication that he might be a better leader or strategist than he is an actual fighter. So we'll see where he goes from there, and as for the rest of them, I find them entertaining, and I hope to see more of them. I do have to say that Monty himself voices Li Ren, and I think that is one of the most fitting, I think that's probably the most fitting voice to a character in this show thus far. You know, like, you hear him in, like, interviews and videos and stuff, and you think that like I never would have imagined he would be a good actor or that he would be a good voice for a character, but it totally fits with Lee Ren, so I think that's a good thing. Yeah, so that is a good thing, and so thus far all the characters I find interesting, if not entertaining, and I am interested to see where they go with them, you know. There's also that third team where I think we just learned their names. Like, we just briefly learned their names at the end of episode 8. And we had seen their models in the background a few times, and we haven't really seen them do anything yet. And, you know, and given the number of relics in the temple, I'm going to assume there's probably more teams than have been shown thus far. And maybe they just don't have the character models ready. That's a pretty pragmatic excuse, but it wouldn't surprise me if it were true. Aside from the students, we have Mrs. Teacher Lady, who really does not have much of a character thus far, and I'm not going to bother talking about her. And the Headmaster Ozpin, who, common fan theory seems to be that he's going to turn out to be, if not the main villain, then some kind of evil force later on in disguise. My personal prediction on that is that I don't think he's going to be evil, but I do think he may have some morally dubious secrets, or be some sort of well-intentioned extremist or something. There's definitely something going on with him. And again, like, basically the whole point of this rambling is that thus far the show has set up some interesting plots and interesting, just, you know, decent characters that it's a little early to judge it and say whether it's good or bad, but at this point I would say that it's not bad and that I'm still looking forward to when new episodes come out. Apparently there's going to be some kind of hiatus now that episode 8 is out. We're not sure how long that's going to last or even why that is, although if I had to guess why that is, it's probably because Monty has probably collapsed in a coma because of all this work he's doing constantly. But, man, I really hope that's not the case. That sounds frightening. That sounds frighteningly plausible for him, actually. So yeah, there's going to be some kind of hiatus, and I'm still interested. I'm still kind of hooked here. I can't wait to see more, and I kind of, you know, like, I'm kind of thinking of just, like, when it gets, I don't know if it's ever going to get that far, but when it gets, like, 5 years from now, and we're, like, in season 5 or 6 or whatever, and we look back at this time, like, what are we going to think? Like, is it going to have been ruined by that point, or is it going to have gotten better and better? And we're going to look at these first few episodes as sort of like an awkward early step, you know, rocky start. Like, I don't know how we're going to look at it years from now, assuming it continues that far, which Monty seems to have the intention of doing, you know, given the pace of these episodes and how much stuff he's setting up. I very much doubt it can all be resolved in one season of this length. So, he's setting something up for a long haul here. You know. So, you know, apparently there's going to be some kind of threat. The end of episode 8 showed Roman Torchwick again, the dust thief from the first episode. We don't know much about him, but if I have to complain, it doesn't seem, I mean, he's cool and all, but it doesn't seem like he just doesn't seem all that threatening. He looks like a small-time leader of a group of thugs. Like, I don't know, maybe for a season 1 villain that's not bad, but, and again, we really don't know much about him, so he may be more dangerous than he leads on, but at this point, he doesn't seem all that particularly threatening. But again, we will see. So, my verdict at this point is just that the show has shown its setup, and it's shown it has some potential, and, you know, I hope that future episodes can really show off that potential, and, you know, because I really want it to be something good. I think we all want it to be something good. If you've been disappointed so far, but I think the general reaction, especially to episode 8, is that episode 8 has finally sort of shown the strength of the setup, and it's kind of starting to pay off the first few episodes of setup and build up and all that. It's the first time we've seen an action set piece that even came close to anything we saw in the trailers, which probably pleased a lot of people. And, there's some good humor in the first half. And also, I've just seen a lot of people exclaiming that they're happy that episode 8 was as long as it was. It was damn near 14 minutes, which for this series is, ridiculously long. It's longer than the first episode was. The first episode was only 12, I think? And apparently it's going to follow that formula from here on, where the first, middle, and last episodes of a season will be significantly longer than the rest. I'm not sure how I feel about that, but it is kind of happy to know that, or it's good to know that it's good to know that some episodes will be of a decent length, I suppose. I don't know. Kind of makes up for the abysmally short and kind of, the abysmally short and middling episode 7, where a bunch of stuff, I think I made a Twitter post at the time where it was just episode 7, the one where stuff happens that will be resolved next time, it really kind of felt like a hodgepodge of just stuff happening, and it was very abysmally short, and this kind of made up for that. So, yeah. This has been a long rambling, even though I took a significantly long break in the middle of it to go get a haircut. Side note, by the way, I hate school buses. Ugh. I hate getting stuck behind stupid school buses. Yeah, whatever. So anyway, that was my rambling on RWBY. Decent start. Looking forward to what more is going to come our way. Whenever that is. Not sure how long this hiatus thing is supposed to last. And I will probably do another ramblings video once this season is over. So y'all can look forward to that, and I'm going to look forward to doing that. So yeah, my thoughts on RWBY. Episode end. Now. No, wait, now. Now!